what I've referred to a few times here is one, trauma. And part of what the thesis that I work with, and part of the theory that's being worked with a lot of people in terms of trauma these days, is that we have the natural, innate ability to release trauma, God-given in our physiology, but that it has been disabled by, one, the overuse of our rational part of our being, our mind, the abstracting part of our mind, the neocortex. It's also been disabled by our lifestyle. Last night I spoke a lot about what it means to be sitting in chairs. We take chairs for granted, but most of us are not aware of the fact that the posture that we're encouraged to develop in a chair, most of us do not sit in chairs like this, which would be all right. We sit in chairs like this because it's comfortable. But what does it do to us in terms of a kind of a fixed posture? Is that couches and overstuffed chairs, even more so. And a lot of the beds we have. And the car. Except for certain cars that have well-designed chairs. And the computer. So our lifestyle, how much do we walk? How much are we upright? Most people who have back problems, they are not breathing fully. People feel oppressed. And when you feel oppressed, what happens? When you feel disappointed, what happens? Huh? You get sick. You get sick, but what I was demonstrating here is when you feel it, what do? When you feel beaten down. Or when you try to compensate for it. Chest out, stomach in, militarily. I'm going to be strong. Rigidify, etc., etc. But all of these things disable. Health is grace. Suppleness. A hard body is not a healthy body. A supple body is a healthy body. In terms of flow, in terms of energy, right? In terms of movement. In terms of everything working together. My cat, was it here that I talked about my cat jumping to the... I can't remember if it was last night or today. My cat does that. The reason she can do that, you know, my cat, I love to do this and I love to demonstrate it to people. I like to touch one hair on the tip of her tail. One hair. I go, boom, and she goes, and I touch it, and her skin goes, her whole skin goes, and when she jumps, I've watched it, and when she jumps with every claw and every hair from the tip of the tail to the whiskers on her nose. All together in one incredibly coordinated, organized, coherent, integrated movement. So this thing of integrative movement, Tai Chi, Qigong, all these martial arts are about that. It's about developing this flow of energy and unifying and integrity of the body, getting that energy to flow. It wants to flow from the center of our being right on out. The Prophet Muhammad said, in the body there is an organ, and when that organ is sound, the body is sound, and that organ is the heart. And the heart is what it says, the core. Core, the word core means heart. It's from the word in Latin, it means heart. Core. The core of our being is center, the heart of our being. And from the heart of our being wants to flow in the same way that all nature expresses from the inward to the outward. At the core of our being, in our heart, there is the essence of the nature of reality, rahmah, mercy, love, This is what lies at the core. And this is what wants to flow naturally out from us. The Prophet Muhammad, in the stories, his heart was cleansed by the angels. Yes? There's examples even before he was given the job as messenger of the angels coming and opening his chest and washing his heart in snow. An awesome thing. Purifying it. But we know that when he was with people, he was totally with people. They say that when he spoke to a person, he didn't turn to speak to them. He turned his entire body to speak to them. And the Shaykh last night was saying that not only that, he related to the entire creation, that he spoke to the trees, called them by names, and the wind when it came. He made dua, we call it dua, but he was in fact speaking to the creation. He named his cloak. He named his staff. Personally, he connected to it. Do you see what this is about? It's about being present. It's about being present in yourself, turning your whole life. It's about being present in yourself. It's about also being present with that which is around you, fully present. So what I'm saying is we live in an age that's unique. It's unique in the history of our species, as far as we know. One of the things that's happened in the last 100 years is we've created the ability to posit images of ourselves in extreme. Susan Sontag, again, the woman I mentioned earlier, Illness as Metaphor. In one of her books, she says, the extended family has been replaced by the family album. Photo album. And we sit with the family photo album with nostalgia and say, oh, look, there's Uncle Bill and there's you when you were... But it's not the same as living, live human beings that are in your house, that pick up your child when they need it. The niece that picks up your daughter to help you out for a moment because she just wants to hold that baby. Or the granny that does that. Or the neighbor. So we live in a unique time. We live in a time when film, photography, images, stories, ad infinitum, endless stories go on. People, there was a poll that someone did some time ago, sort of a cross section of the country, and they asked people to identify the most evil people in the world today, and half of the things that came back were real people and half were characters from television. Do you know, like, so wait a minute, do people discern the difference? And I say, no, in some level, what I repeat over and over is that no, it's no accident that they called that program Friends. Because really it replaced, people began to call, I'd hear it, people were calling the characters on that program by their first names. And they'd say, did you know what Joy did today? And who's Joy? Oh, it's a friend of mine. But here's what I'm getting at. We live in a narcissistic age. Narcissist, the story of Narcissus, you all know the story of Narcissus, but let me remind you of the story of Narcissus if you don't. It's a Greek myth, if you will. And the story of Narcissus is that Narcissus is a beautiful being. Okay? But what happens is he goes to a pond and he gazes upon his image in the pond for the first time, and he sees how beautiful he is and becomes totally caught by the image. He cannot take his eyes off the image. He cannot leave the image. His companion happens to be Echo. Echo is the woman who accompanies him. And Echo is debilitated in a different way. He's stuck at the pond and will die at the pond by obsession with his image. Now, narcissism is a term that popularly is used to describe someone who is in love with themselves. But correctly speaking, Narcissus was not in love with himself. He was in love with an image of himself outside of himself. And Echo, the female companion, was only able to repeat what he said. Only to echo. Now that's another whole story in terms of male-female dynamics that we'll go, maybe tomorrow I can go into. But the point I'm making here is that narcissist was not in love with himself. He was not connected to himself. He was placing himself outside of himself and abstracting himself from actually being present. And there was no real love for himself there. Are you with me on this? So we live in an age in which people, okay, the exercise I want to get to has to do with the first stage of experiencing, doing some exercises that can help us to begin to experience feeling and being present, okay? So I say we live in an age of narcissism in which we do not feel. We do not feel and live in a realm of feeling and being present with our feelings in our bodies. And artificial environments, automobiles, controlled temperatures, artificial light, being disconnected from nature, being disconnected from animals, being disconnected from each other, most importantly, are the things that perpetuate and create this disconnection from ourselves. So that we find people who, though everything's right, they drive the right kind of SUV, they've gone to the right kind of school, they look right, they even go to the right kind of therapist, they say the right things, they wear the right clothes, everything looks right. What's wrong with them? Why are they depressed? Why are they sick? Why do we not feel from them what we would expect to feel? Why do they do suddenly this out of this terrible thing? Or why don't they care what's happening in Iraq? Why don't they care what's happening in the inner city ghetto? Why don't they care enough to do something? Because they don't care. Caring is feeling. We do not recognize the degree to which we have lost feeling. Okay, that's one of my statements. We do not realize the extent to which we have lost feelings. Men mostly. Women, for the most part, are still stuck with feelings. Sorry, but thanks. Are you with me? Sorry that you have all these feelings, but thank you for at least preserving that aspect of humanity for us. Okay? Does this seem strange what I'm saying to anybody? Yeah.
I think you have a lot of good points, and I tend to agree with you that in the modern age, people have lost touch with a lot of things. But haven't some people always been dishonest or corrupt throughout time? And for example, I feel like I've met as many honest people among secular yuppies than, even NSA Muslims. So,
okay, I hear what you're saying.
And our genetics.
Okay, let me reiterate this. We live in a time in which we have become disconnected from nature, from animals, and from our physical being. We don't walk anymore. Okay, we can go to the gym and work out, we can get these machines and do that, and we can try to, but even that may not do what there's a lot of pieces that play into this. What I wanted to put out here before we do this exercise was this concept, and I'll elaborate on it more if you like, but really that we're not feeling like someone did 100 years ago. We're not present in our bodies. And part of the reason we're not present is that we're not present with each other. We need each other. Part of the reason we're not present in our bodies is because we were not connected to our mothers. How many people, probably even now, that were bottle fed? How many people were separated from their mothers in the delivery room in the hospital? How many people were separated from their mothers at an early age or placed in front of a television as a babysitter? With an abstract world, two-dimensional, that's not real at all, and had to develop the ability, even at an early baby age, develop the ability to fix on the movement and the continuity of this false life that was going on, that is not life at all. These are things, and how many of us were weaned on the television so we would we would hear the news about some horrible murder or some terrible thing happening in some country, followed by the Escalade commercial, followed by, the Sprite commercial, followed by some terrible thing that happened, and how we had to learn to just sit and take each one in as if no one was different than the other. These were all dehumanizing experiences, and on and on and on and on. So what I'm saying is, there are good people and there are bad people everywhere, but what I'm saying is this: we are not present in our bodies. We're not present in our bodies. If we were present in our bodies, we would be feeling more. If we were feeling more, we would care. But caring comes from feeling. Most of us think we feel. Think we feel. I know one man who said, well, I can't think of how I should feel in this situation. And I said, wow, you can't think of how you should feel in this. Yeah, that's the way we men tend to work. I think I'm supposed to feel this, so okay, I'm thinking I'm supposed to feel this, so I'm going to be appropriate and dutiful as a human being. Right, and I'm thinking I'm feeling this, so right, I feel sad. But you don't feel sad with your brain. You don't feel angry with your brain. You don't feel anxious with your brain. You don't feel tender and loving with your brain. You feel with your body. You get angry. People get angry. You all remember the last time you got really angry? Anybody? Can you all remember anybody who can't remember getting angry? I remember just very recently getting angry. I remember getting angry. I got angry and I was doing salat, and this guy kept pushing his foot over more and more, so I was going to fall over that way if he did any more. And I said, come on. I wanted to go, give me some space. And I felt angry, and I said, okay, where do I feel angry? Where do I feel that? Because we feel emotions in our body. This is a simple fact. You all remember the last time you got angry? How did you know you were angry? It wasn't because you knew here with his brain. You felt angry, right? Are you all with me on this? It's a simple fact. Does anyone right? Is this true or not true? We feel emotions, but if our bodies are shut down in terms of our nervous systems, we don't feel them. We think we feel them. But I will suggest that awakening feeling for most of us, and for men more than women, is now a process in which we have to fight and work against tide of things that conspire to keep us separate from feeling. And that tide consists of being disconnected from nature, being disconnected from our own bodies, living in unnatural controlled environments, overwhelming issues. That's another one of the things that conspires to keep us from feeling. It's too much. We can't handle it. Like, my God, this is happening, that's happening, this is happening, that's happening. Oh my God, and that, oh, what, It's no accident. You know, all know this movie. Anybody here watch popular movies? Dawn of the Dead was a classic. No accident, they just remade the movie. Did they not remake it? And where does the new version take place? In what? In a mall, right? So we live in an age of narcissism in which we do everything according to what's supposed to happen. Everything is outside of ourselves. I'm doing all the correct things. I look right. Why am I not happy? Why do I not feel fulfilled? Because you don't have people that you really love and you feel that love and spend time with. You don't have family that you sit and eat with. You don't have friends that you process your life daily with, expressing emotion of all kinds, tears, happiness, sorrow, joy, anger, disagreements. That's what life is about. And what happens in those personal, real exchanges is something happens to the physiology, right? Something happens materially to the fluids, the nervous system. You smell that person. And something different happens than when you're talking on the cell phone. So I'll go more into that when I talk about trauma. But right now I want to focus on this idea that we have lost a degree of feeling. And I'm going to do a couple of exercises to regain feelings. Are you all up for it? Yeah. Okay. So let's all start by standing. If you have shoes that are easy to take off, with shoes off, this works better. You can do this at home, and there's a kind of reiteration of this in your handouts. One of the things that happens, two things happen. If you look at children, the natural way to stand, how many of you stand normally? Just stand naturally. How many of you have knees locked? How many have unlocked knees? Locked? 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 Unlocked? You guys know better. See, anybody who's done martial arts learns some of this right away or understands bioenergetic. Locked? Locked is like this, clunk. Mm-hmm. So it's solid from here down to there. Unlocked is they're slightly bent, so there's a little bit of bounce. When you lock your knees, basically the mobility that's naturally meant to be present from your waist down is gone. It's rigid, it's fixed, it's actually on some level dead because it's like a car without shock absorbers. But more than that, it's a body that naturally wants to release energy by grounding it out through the earth, naturally, by design of heaven and earth, that has been disabled, and it gets stuck because this is not functioning from the waist down. Are you with me on this? Okay. In the Quran, it says, in the alternation of night and day, there is a sign in the alternation of night and day for those who reflect. This is a big, big, big ayat. Big ayat. Big, deep meaning in it. Lots of it. Everything works like that. Alternation of night and day. The sun comes up, it comes out. Everything opens. Heat, movement, activity. The sun sets. Charge, opening, discharge, settling. Day and night. Okay? Our nervous systems work the same way. They charge up, active, and they discharge. Our systems charge up with each breath. As we breathe in, there's a charge, and as we breathe out, it discharges. If it's really integrated like my cat, we breathe from our belly up into our shoulders, into our head, awarenesses, charge, discharge happens through our body down to the earth, and let's go. And if we do that, we successfully relax with each breath. So there's a relaxation with each breath. There's a letting go with each breath. And as I say to people who are very busy, well, you have to learn how to rest between breaths. That is, with each breath, you have to learn how to rest with each breath. And that can be done. That's with grace, with successful charge and discharge. Okay? So, the first next thing we want to do is observe that the natural way to stand is with the knees unlocked. Look at little children, up until the age of about 5 or 6, they always have their knees unlocked. And then about 5 or 6, they start having enough trauma and things happening around them that they can start, don't hit me, or whatever it might be. Oh my God, did I do that wrong again? They'll start rigidifying. It's like, and then the other thing, so standing is one thing, breathing is the second thing. The two things that people need to relearn to do is to stand and then to breathe. The second thing that happens, again, the 6-year-old starts doing it. A lot of young people, they have such difficulty. Breathing and feeling go together. If you breathe, you feel. If you don't breathe, you feel less. So you want to feel less, cut your breathing down. You want to feel less, cut your oxygen intake down. So it's a strategy. Cigarettes are a strategy. Instead of oxygen, you're taking smoke, so you have less oxygen. You have less activation, oxygenation of the blood, less aliveness of the nervous system, less flow, less feeling. So the two things we're going to do here today, first of all, is we're going to do an exercise in standing. And most of us really are not able to experience standing on our own 2 feet. Okay, I mentioned earlier that I've gotten people off of Zyprexa and other drugs in this past year simply by teaching them how to stand and to experience the event and the experience of standing, so that they unconsciously felt, I can stand on my own 2 feet. This is what it's like. I feel as though I can support my own weight. I can carry my own weight, is the expression. These are not accidental expressions. Are you with me? Okay. So here's the exercise. Feet should be about 6 inches apart, almost parallel. Upper body should be relaxed and relatively breathing as much as possible. Most of us have developed this kind of stuff, and this rounding. Most of us have done that to some degree. And most of us are not upright. Last night I was mentioning in traditional cultures how many people you see who carry things around on their head. And how many of us are even able to even consider doing that? I mean, this is not the right thing. But how many of us can even do it? It used to be something they taught in finishing school, to learn posture. But this is being upright. The ears are meant to be above the shoulders, right? Right? Physiology people, the ears are meant to be above the shoulders. Most of us, and women, Girls, when they start getting breasts, very often they'll do this too. They'll start, oh my God, I'm not going to show off that, But that is a natural way. That's a natural way to be full of life, is for the breast and chest to be full and open. So there are a lot of issues and factors that play into this. Feeling oppressed, feeling frightened, feeling protective. All of these things we start to do. So at the age of 6, people start shutting down this breathing. And at the age of 16 to 20, around that time, even more so. So let's start by 6 inches apart from the feet, knees bent, the upper body fairly upright, and breathing as much as you can. We won't work on the breath right now, but it should be relaxed up here. And then bend the knees a little bit more. Bend the knee, but keep your body upright. And just stay like that. And observe what you feel in your legs. Pay attention to your legs and your feet on the ground. Feel the feet on the floor. Knees are bent, needs to be bent more. Keep your body upright, don't throw your trunk forward, do you see? Bend at the knees. Bend a little more. Okay, now you should start feeling your legs. Bend a little more. Anybody, any comments? What do you feel in your legs? Anybody feel shakiness? Upper body, upper, okay, you feel the tension? Okay, good. Anybody feel a little trembling, a little shakiness? Shakiness. The shakiness comes because basically we've been off our legs for so long and not in our legs that trembling and that shaking is actually the life force beginning to come back into your legs. That's called streaming. And that is what they call chi, right? Prana, vital force. It's the life force coming back into the legs. And so you're beginning to start to wake. It's awakening. It's an awakening. So the nervous system is saying, hey, wait a minute. You're starting to feel the weight on your legs. So anybody getting tired on their legs now from feeling it? Okay, can you stay with it? Let's get tired a little bit more. Bend them a little bit more. And try even going up and down a little bit. You feel the muscle of your thighs? You're getting some burning now, huh? What are you feeling? Huh? What are you feeling? You're feeling like laughing. That's good. That's good too. Cool. Anybody feeling burning in their legs now? Tension? What?
It's going away. If there was tension there, it's going away.
Well, it's going to go away a little bit from the movement. Okay, just stay with them bent a little bit more. Let's see if we can stay a little bit longer. See if we can stay for at least 1 more minute. With the legs bent, the upper body relaxed, and feeling the weight of your body on your legs. Your legs carry this weight around every day. For most of you, it's well over 100 pounds, right? Some of you, more petite ones, maybe just around 100. But 150 pounds all day, that's a real weight, right? These are great muscles in the body. We haven't even done it for a minute, this last minute. Smiles. What is anybody feeling? What's anybody experiencing? Burning. Good. Okay, the burning is good. That's part of the streaming. Huh? Heaviness in your legs. Okay, now, so we're getting to the right point. Let's get just until 1 minute has passed. This hasn't even been 3 minutes we've done this, Okay, now slowly straighten up, but do not lock your knees. Now remember, you might feel some shakiness and unsteadiness. Remember, knees unlocked. This is the natural way to stand, so that your body is alive, so that this charge and discharge can happen, and so that you can, as you spend your time in the day, as you go through the day, you actually feel the weight of your body. I mean, it is there. You can forget that it's there and walk rigid, But this is, and like I say, I have seen people come off of medications, and I've seen people come from a place of being in great insecurity. Psychologists in here, any psychologists? Feeling really much more secure by learning how to stand and feel that they can, as they say, hold their own weight. They can stand on their own 2 feet, or the expression we say is, let's get you back onto your feet. But you have to feel that. And it's a sense of security. I am on the earth and on the ground, and it supports me by Allah's design. That's the unconscious thing that comes from carrying your own weight and being present in your... Now, as you move around, now try shifting your weight to 1 foot, another foot, move around a bit, and notice what you feel in your legs. They feel some of you feel kind of a thickness, heaviness to your legs. Yes? Anybody? That is what's called being present in your legs. You've come back into, that's the chi being present in your legs. If you do this every day as an exercise, it will change the way you feel in the day. I promise you. It may not seem like it, but it's cumulative. Because it's cumulative, because what it is, it's again something we did as children all the time. It's something we begin to remember. And our nervous system, if we spend enough time with it consciously to recover that quality, the nervous system begins to say, oh, right, I have 100 pounds I'm carrying around here. I need to know that. I need to be aware of that and not be living in some fantasy, living somewhere else in my mind. I need to be present. Yeah.
Martial arts class, they teach you how to stand in the same way you was showing us in the evening, but they have it where maybe your legs are parallel to the ground. Now,
Where the legs are parallel to the ground?
yeah, meaning you're just lower.
You mean where the thighs would be? Yeah. Uh-huh.
And you're like in a horse stance, what they call a horse stance.
Uh-huh.
Feet from forward. And you might do this for like 5 minutes. Now, is that bad on your knees?
Well, it can be hard on the knees, but the most important thing about these martial arts, if you have a good teacher or if you have a reflection in yourself, as you learn these exercises of standing, of moving, whatever it might be, if you do it consciously, let me tell you something about the nervous system. It's important to recognize that, first of all, the nervous system learns, but it learns very slowly. It can respond very rapidly. So if there's threat, the nervous system will, like the eye will boom, will blink to protect something coming at it, like rapidly. But in terms of relearning an experience, the nervous system moves very slow. It's like the tortoise and the hare. Sometimes I think that's the meaning of that story of the tortoise and the hare. The hare is the animal part. It goes like that, and the tortoise. So the nervous system is very slow in learning. So if you do martial arts of any kind, the more you reflect and the more you consciously become aware of what's happening, the more valuable it can become to you. And the more you slow it down, the more you can integrate it, and the nervous system can begin to pick it up and integrate it into your daily life. If you do this exercise every day where you begin to feel the burning and the trembling in your legs, and you get the charge and the streaming back in place, wallahi, I promise you, after a week, 2 weeks, month, you will start feeling differently. Okay? So most of the martial arts things are very good. Some are, like I say, some teachers are better than others in terms of teaching this, but the whole point is this. Here's another exercise. So let's stay with the knees bent, but let's do this. Put your hands upright. Focus on your hands. Okay. Do you notice that by focusing on your hands, the sensations you experience in your hands change suddenly? Because you're aware of it. It's like when I went out to buy a Volkswagen, a bug one time. Every car, I noticed every bug on the street, right? You know how that works? Someone says red car, and you start seeing all the red cars. Same with our consciousness. We can either be conscious and present in our body, or we can be walking around in our bodies, and we can be at our computer or dealing with something we have to work with tomorrow. Being present in your body and being aware of being present in your body and being connected to the senses. That doesn't mean that's all we experience, but that's the grounding place. That's where we stand. As Rumi said, our feet on the earth and our head in the heavens. One way we have the feet on the earth is by awareness of our body. Okay? It's like the difference between walking through a forest and thinking about your computer and walking through the forest and noticing what the pine smells like. Noticing what the soil and the humus as it's doing its thing on the ground is. Noticing the animals. Noticing the colors. Smelling the fragrance. Same thing with the body. And the body is like the forest. It is beautiful. It's beautiful to be present. It's beautiful to feel the blood when it flows through your arms if you really are conscious of feeling that. That doesn't mean you only live by that, because then that is the means by which you can be genuinely, experientially in a state of appreciation of God and His creation. In a state of hamd and shukr. Really, in a real way. So, we can focus on our hands, and suddenly our hands seem energized and activated, right? Now if you shift your focus to your feet. Suddenly you feel the ground under your feet. Right? Now shift to arms. I just want to point out the fact that this changes the way suddenly you can feel the sensations that are happening in your arms. Okay, now shift consciousness, awareness of the person in front of you and beside you. Just awareness, without necessarily looking. Just shift your consciousness. Because we also emanate and receive and sense from a distance presence of other people. The animal in us does it. There is what they call an aura. There's a field that's about 25 feet apart. It's another exercise we could do at another time. And if you have two people and you walk towards each other at about 25 feet, if you pay attention to the sensation in your body, at about 25 feet, you will feel an awareness of that person coming into your... Then there's a closer one, and its energy comes in a circular pattern from the heart. And that has different degrees. It has a degree of about 6 feet and has a degree of about 10 feet. So the child, when it's in the arena, in what they call the heart arena of the mother, the child feels that. And we feel it with each other. So when we sit around the same dish at a meal, there's more than just words that are exchanged. And that's just the energy, the subtle energies of the body. That's not counting the breath, that which comes out of our bodies, et cetera, et cetera. So, okay, so that's the standing exercise. Now, one more thing in terms of returning and recovering sensation. Here's an exercise that if you do every day, this will change too. And this is... Try slapping your thighs first of all. Slap you until it feels a little burning. You feel a little burning there? And notice the after feeling from the burning. And do it in various parts of your body. Arms. You can even do it up here if you want. But your arms, so there's actually a little stinging. If you do this, we've only done this for about 30 seconds, you know that? If you do this for 2 minutes, I see some real smiles out there. Now, is it because it seems foolish to do it? Or is it awakening something? Is it stimulating something that makes you want to smile? That's a question I have. Most of the feeling that we experience, like I say, we don't feel anymore. Most of the feeling happens in maybe the 1.5 inches of the outer surface of our body. Most of what we feel. There are visceral feelings too that happen deep in our guts, but a great deal of what we feel or don't feel happens or doesn't happen in the very surface of our body. To do this every day, hey, stop and think about it. If you did this every day, would that not change things? We're going to get into some other exercises that are even more dramatic in terms of, inshallah, in terms of awakening sensation and developing the breath's ability to move through the body, inshallah.
I call it beating yourself.
Yeah. But the point is that you get that kind of stinging, and what it does is it actually stimulates the nerve. See, what happens in trauma, with trauma and repeated trauma, is the nervous system begins to shut down for protection. So it shuts off, whole areas of the body shut off, like whole areas of the back shut off, the chest, the arms. And when it shuts down, you have to reawaken it somehow, bring it back to life, so that it can release trauma, and so that it functions, physiologically functions. So you're actually working. I mean, and it doesn't necessarily work from vigorous exercise. Yeah.
How does this, like, standing and beating yourself compare to just playing sports?
Well, that's what I was just saying. As I was saying, physical exercise doesn't not necessarily do it. Because actually physical exercise, especially like weight training, can actually be a means by which you actually extend the lack of feeling by strengthening, by tightening and hardening the muscles, or by stressing them. You don't necessarily get the subtle sensation. The most powerful, like for example, stretching. If you watch cats and animals, my cat, every time she wakes up, she goes, she does this incredible stretch. Like Tai Chi, if it's really done fully and completely, is a kind of stretching. And it's feeling the energy move through your suppleness, experiencing fully the sensations in your nervous system is the most valuable way to stretch and to move and to exercise. So that the next thing one can learn from standing and really feeling the experience in the legs, the next thing you can do is actually develop the ability to feel the legs as they fit into the hips, and to feel the weight of your body as it pushes it against your hip, and then when you walk, to actually feel the experience of your weight rhythmically moving. But to do that consciously enables you to recover that which the nervous system has lost, which is that it's that awareness and awakeness. Because you can build up huge muscles and work out and run forever and not develop that sensitivity. But if you do what I'm talking about, what you do is you regain sensation and feeling, which is what we hope for. And in that is good health, and in that is the experience of life. And like I said, to experience feeling, I'm telling you men this, it doesn't mean just that you can cry. That's not good enough. Emotions and feeling is no less vast than the creation. Are you with me? Did you hear what I said? The range of emotion, the range of feeling is nothing less, it's no less than what we see in the creation. There are feelings that are the equivalent of the yellow leaves on the trees. There are feelings that are the equivalent of the stream as it bubbles down over the rocks. There's feelings that are the equivalent of the lightning as it strikes and crashes and shakes the house. All of these are, these are, like I say, what is in here is out there. But we've shut ourselves down. Like crying is, sorrow and grief is a real emotion. And so is joy. But there is a range of, and this is what poetry and music is about. It's about recognizing those things, putting a handle on it, expressing them, identifying them for each other. We identify these things for each other, don't we? In music and in poetry, in song. Is that making sense? So working out, I mean, sometimes the person that builds, it's as counterproductive as anything, because you can just rigidify and shut down the breathing and the sensation, the subtle sensation, as much as if you didn't do any movement. So it's not necessarily in physical activity. Yeah?
The way that we can talk about exercising, availability of muscle, sports, all these things, is counteracting to the actual training of men. In other words, males should be trained differently because they have recognized they are more sensitive cerebrally, more sensitive, and more creative cerebrally than females. Females tend to be a bit more aggressive, a little more stronger, and a little more enduring than some males. So in that regard, how much damage has been done to the society of families by rearing children in these ways?
Did you all hear that question? How much damage has been done to families and to society by rearing men? I say by not teaching them. By not teaching them at all. I mean, the strongest men, here's the story. You all know the story of Sayyidina Ali. The Muslims know the story. There's a story of one of the great figures in Islam, Sayyidina Ali, who is known on one hand to be this incredible warrior with the sword, the Zulfiqar, that could cut through the midsection of a person, right? Wasn't that the truth? I mean, isn't that what they say about it? But one of the most famous stories about him is the time when he was in battle and he raised his sword and the man that he was about to strike with the sword spat on him, and Sayyidina Ali dropped his sword because he became angry at the man, and he was not fighting out of his personal anger, and his personal anger came into it. How did he know he was angry, and how did he respond, and how did he manage to do that particular thing? It's not by being in some idea about him being, a fighter for justice and truth. It was not by being in some ideal and idea abstracted of being a martyr for this or that. No, it was by being present, by recognizing I feel angry, and therefore, what do? I do not strike this man in anger. That's like great. At the edge of action, being in control of his anger, managing his being. So the strongest men are the men who feel. We've been led to believe that feeling is a feminine thing. Being too emotional is something that women do, and it's one of their weaknesses. Rather than believing that we can also be sensitive and have feeling and to be physically strong, and to be strong in all the ways we understand ordinarily to be strong in the world. And I tell you, this men I've seen who are the strongest men personally that I would attribute as being the strongest men in the world, both in terms of their ability to act in the world and to be of service and to be of service of other people, they're the men closest to their mothers. And there are men who have feeling. But we're not trained on how to be feeling. We're trained to be otherwise. We're trained to be strong is to be without feeling. And women are learning it more and more. There are women who are now learning to abstract themselves as much as men and to live outside of their bodies. Women generally have softer bodies. A softer body generally has more sensation. Generally. But a lot of women who have soft bodies also develop and shut down their nervous system, so their sensation gets lost. And then when the sensation is lost, the nervous system is shut down, then the physiology begins to follow. You know, the physiology follows in terms of there not being the dynamic fire. So they start gaining weight, they have loose sensation, et cetera, et cetera. So then the physiology follows. But they even women suffer from lack of feeling nowadays. Am I making sense? Yes.
So I believe that when someone is in love with another person,
yes,
then you get more energy, you get more joy.
Yes.
So I have a friend who was expressing his love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he expressed that he got the most energy, he has more energy and joy. So I don't know if you have any, like when you're in love with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like there's an energy coming out of you expressing and joining. So I mean, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah. Well, again, like I was saying earlier, the heart is the center of our being. It's called that, the heart of our being. And, you know, we talk about people who come from their heart, who are full of heart, who are all heart, all these expressions. Or a person who lives and speaks and works from his heart. He's a really heart. All of these expressions express the same principle. That, you know, at the center of us is that core being, and the core of our being is actually, it's an incredibly beautiful thing. And right there, close to the heart, yes, is grief, sorrow, and great joy and ecstasy. But at the heart, the core of the heart, it wants to express and it wants to flow out. So it wants to express love. I mean, the Muslim believes, part of being a mu'min, a believer, is believing that Allah's mercy dominates His wrath. It precedes His wrath. At the core and the essence of the creation is in essence for all life is love and mercy and goodness and beauty. So to be able to express it, when you're in love and you really love somebody, that's one of the most wonderful things you can do. I love you, right? And for it to freely come out and express itself. And when it expresses itself physically, or if that translates into sexuality, that's also very, very extremely beautiful. And very powerful in terms of the life and the vital force, is it not? It brings the body to life. It brings the being to life. So when one is able to get to a genuine place where you really feel love for all of, for Allah, and you can express it, yeah. And that's what real dhikr is, to really remember Allah and with exclamation, remember Allah, Allah, to really let it happen. It, in a sense, it's kind of a cleansing the body of all that stuff that's come, all the things that have happened to us, all the good and all the bad, all the successes and all the failures, all the achievements and all the things we've failed at, etc., etc. It's leaving all that stuff behind and recognizing that Allah has made us unique. And this is an extraordinary, unique, incredible experience of being alive. So these are principles of hikmah. That's the section I'm supposed to be working on now. Yeah.
What are some of the techniques that the companions of the Prophet as well as the Prophet himself used to practice in order to maintain this type of feeling that you mentioned?
Well, again, like I said, part of what they had was the presence of the Prophet, peace be upon him. Part of what they had, that was to their, that was a great thing for them. I was mentioning earlier, was it in the group or was it with someone, that someone came to the Prophet peace be upon him, and he said to him, he said, go to such and such a country and take the teachings of Islam to them. And the man said, I don't think I can do that. And the Prophet ﷺ came up to him, put his hand on his heart. I think, was that in the class? I did that in the class. So that's the touch. It was the presence of him that made a lot of difference, for one thing. But they also lived in a time in which they were more present by the lifestyle they had. That's the exercises they did. The Prophet ﷺ carried wood on his back, and when people tried to take it from him, he said no. They walked from one place to another. Walking is not a little thing in terms of what it does, not only to the body and the circulation and the sense of weight and carrying your own weight, but what it does in terms of the right and left brain. What it does in terms of interaction and coordination. We don't realize the simplest things that we've been given are great, great, great gifts. So a lot of the practices they had, and they ate together. That's a practice they had. Connection, presence with each other is a powerful medicine. Connection with Allah's creation is a powerful medicine. How many of you know, I have seen this for years. I saw, again, this personality profile of the abused woman who's abused sexually. Horrible, horrible stories. You can't imagine, how does this person come out with any goodness in their heart for any other human being? Wallahi, it's a testament. The way people have gone through is a testament to what's possible with goodness and the forgiveness that people can carry in them. And I've seen them not, just be hypersensitive to the environment, just so that everything affects them. And so hypersensitive they can't sleep. They can't enjoy life at all. And I've seen them go amongst animals like horses. Incredible healing to be with horses. Go into the forest and be with nature. To touch the ground, to smell to touch the tree, to be with the trees, to walk on the earth. These things are healing to us. Our body responds, because this is who we are. We're made from the earth. And this is part of the design. But we've left it behind. So that's some of the practices. They also, they had this, because of what was happening, they had this, one of the things I consider very high level is this concept of inspiration. Like when I come to a group like this, I was telling the brother, I often want to just say things, I just want to inspire people, because that's what we need. We need to inspire ourselves, and we need to inspire each other. Inspire means to breathe in. We need to be inspired. We need to have the enthusiasm about the reality of our life and our inevitable death. It's right there in front of us, not too far away probably, We don't know how far, but, being alive.
What about like negative feelings like jealousy, rage, anger? Like you're saying that we're supposed to know that they are within us, but that Islamically we're taught to not manage them. How do you manage them without suppressing
Well, again, there's a lot of ways to manage. So what about anger, jealousy, and the negative feelings? Okay, so if the heart stays basically in its essence good and wants to radiate mercy, goodness, and love, if that's its nature, then anything we put in the way of that will obstruct that natural flow, right? If it wants to flow from an inner part of our being outward. I love you. With those companions were sitting with the Prophet, and one man got up and walked away, and one man said to the Prophet ﷺ, and they said, I love that man. And he said to them, go after him and catch him and tell him. Express it. Speak it. Say it. So it wants to do that. Now, what happens is it's also the core of our being. And if it gets hurt, what does it do? If any part of our being gets hurt, it wants to protect. So if we get hurt, one of the things we'll do, and you all know, if your heart gets broken or if you get hurt by another person, what do? You're worried about getting into another exchange of any kind. So you start to protect. But when you protect, it stops the flow out as well as the flow in. Okay? So protecting the heart. Now, so the accretions that develop around the heart then are these things that grow from being hurt, from being disappointed. We all have been disappointed. When we were like this, mom and dad, everything, depending upon what situation we're in, some of us at that age were being beaten early on. Many of us. But we still carried with us, and we were taught these ideals about what life was about and about what people were about. And little by little, they started disappointing us. Oh my God, this person did that. And so we all have experienced deep, deep disappointment. And so what happens with that disappointment is we begin to, I'm going to open my heart a little bit, but not that much. Many of us don't open our hearts after that initial. Most of us in the modern age have had some deep, grievous separation from mom. That hurts. And our body responds. Our nervous system responds. So jealousy, anger, most of the difficulties that happen in couples is defensiveness. They want to love and be loved. We all want to love and be loved. It's really simple in principle. But we have this history. And the history causes us to have these trigger responses. And the trigger responses are there in our nervous system. Uh-oh, they said that thing. I think I'm being attacked. Well, I'm going to attack right back. I'm going to fight right back. Fight, flight, freeze. Those are things that happen in relationships too. Tomorrow I'm going to talk more about relationships. Because fight, flight, and freeze, dissociation, happens in relationships too. And it happens in relationships on all levels. When 911 happened in this country, I tell you, I observed it. I would go to the cleaners and the woman was more friendly. Do you all know what I'm talking about? Do you remember that? How people were kind of more open in terms of, for a short time, because they suddenly felt sort of drawn together, and the natural inclination to connect with each other is a way of dealing with trauma. Animals do it. There's trauma. They herd together. Humans want to do the same thing. In the tsunami area, the same thing happened. People, as much as they could, started coming together in groups, cross-culturally, cross-religions, gatherings. The army was coming together with the monks. I mean, all kinds. People want to come together and to be with each other. And so at 911, people opened up and they started speaking. And I went into, and I was noticing it specifically. I thought, wow, this woman, and here we are in the cleaners, and this car, when my car had gotten towed and I had to pick up my car, and these people were being so friendly and open and talking to me, and I realized it was part of this thing of recognizing, hey, we're all humans, this thing has happened, and it kind of awakened them for a moment. And then, of course, what happened is it moved from that to its opposite extreme of extreme defense, until we have a $100 billion home security industry suddenly in place following that, which is the opposite extreme, but it's that closing down and shutting off of openness. So it takes courage to be open. Courage, what is courage? What's the word come from? Kur, right. Courage, from the heart. Open heart. And we don't have anything to lose, but we believe that. We don't have anything to lose by being open, saying, I love you to someone. Or whatever, being expressive, fully expressive. But we're frightened. So these are some of the principles of, let me just reiterate, so I really fulfill the expectations of my outline here, in terms of the hikmah, principles of hikmah. I've mentioned some of them through the day. One of the things I was mentioning that's really important is this idea that what happens in here happens out there. You go out to learn about yourself, you go into yourself to learn about the world. That the universe is the big man, and man is the little universe. Each one contains not one hair more or one hair less than the other. And what you find in separation out there, you find in gatheredness here. That the world and the creation is filled with metaphors, with signs for those who reflect, so for those who can read them. There are certain patterns. Part of the hikmah, the wisdom, is to recognize the truth of reality and accept it and go with it. One of the best examples I like to give is when I went to Pakistan and I first started learning from my teacher. We used to have these big ants. Those of you in Karachi from Pakistan know the big ants? Anybody? You know the great big ants? And they used to, you'd try to rest and they'd come crawling on you, pushing them away, and they'd come crawling back and you push. And what you learn right away is you don't push them away. Huh? You push them in the direction they're going. So if they're coming this way, okay, you want to get there, you're here. It's a simple truth. But that is what they call a hikmah. Do you see what I mean? And the body, the creation, people, societies, that is a basic hikmah. Recognizing the nature of things, and rather than fighting it and trying to control it, to go with it, and to be in harmony with it, and to find joy and fulfillment with it. That is Islam. To accept what Allah has given us. We are here on this earth, where our bodies have a certain nature and a certain quality for a certain period of time. We're sensitive to this, sensitive to that. Certain inclinations happen between us. To accept the nature of all these things and to go with it, and to accept our physiology, what wants to happen. There's a hikmah in that. The fever, the body creates a fever when it's sick. Don't stop the fever. Enable the fever to affect what it's trying to affect. What is the body trying? What has Allah designed into the body that the fever wants? Is it expulsion of the sweat and the fluids that come with that? Is it increasing of the circulation? Is it actually is it to cause the flow so certain elements in the body can destroy certain other elements or replace them? Cleansing? What is it? The Prophet, peace be upon him, he said, one moment of fever, what was the length of time? Washes away bad actions like a tree dropping its leaves. Some short time, like a minute of fever or an hour of fever, cleanses more wrong actions from your being than as a tree in the fall drops its leaves. So a hikmah is recognizing all of that which Allah has created and put into place and going with it, not trying to resist it or control over it. We live in an age not only of narcissism, but we live in an age in which we've learned to believe, particularly in the Western model, and now it's finding its way into the Middle East and into the East, that the way to manage living in this world is to control everything. And if something's not working, we need to put harsher and more firm controls on it to make it work. And that's the control over paradigm which dominates the world at this point in time. So, yes.
I was going to ask a question actually.
Yes.
I was saying that from my experience, like the past years that I've seen that, subhanAllah, there is people that something developed in their heart, which is because of the media and what's going on, and politically and environmentally and everything, that they become like they are like now like working in just a place, earning money, just making a living, and they have fear just to go to the mosque, pray, and like they feel that they are like there's a chains around them, and they are locked up, and they are like pretty much like traumatized. And then at the same time, the opposite picture, which is you find people coming from, for example, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and or like other countries. They are passing the immigration, they are passing the borders, they are coming to the country, but they have in their heart something different, totally different than the one that I was talking about. They have the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they have the courage, they are wearing the clothes, they have the beard, they are wearing the turban, and they come and they talk to the people about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they change people mentality, they change people. They release all these knots that they have. They change people, the way that they think and the way that they thought. And they change the people psychology in just a second by just talking to them about Allah. So, subhanAllah, do you have any comment about that? Why, or like what we should do? What's the best way to approach someone who is in that position, who is have fear and like want to be by himself?
Part of what I've been saying all day, and I'll repeat that, is we're all traumatized. I don't think I've met anyone. To be honest, I don't meet people who are not. And yes, we all have bad experiences, and we have degrees of overcoming them. Degrees in which we've overcome them and renegotiated those traumas. But I meet very few people, to be honest. I'm not belittling anyone. I just say, to be honest, I meet very few people who are really completely free of trauma. and free in themselves, where their vitality and they're really, experientially close to Allah at every moment. So we all suffer from the same thing, and Allah says that He does not change the condition of people, and they change what's inside them. So we all have to look to ourselves. We all have to look to our own healing. Like I said, one of the gifts I discovered in trying to help people with trauma was discovering that I was traumatized myself. And we have to begin with ourselves, and we really have to really believe or question how full we are and how fulfilled we are and how honest we are with ourselves. Most people don't know what it means to be honest with oneself. Sidq, sincerity. That means you're really present and you're in recognition of what you're feeling at all time. I tell you, for most people, when you come back, if you spend some time in recovering sensation, you start coming back into the realm of feeling that was there when you were a child. But now you're an adult. And so it's a hard journey because it hurts, because part of what you experience is pain and deep grief and sorrow. And one of the grievings that people do is the grieving of their being absent from themselves and being disloyal and dishonest with themselves and betraying themselves for so many years. That's not an easy one to understand unless you find and make that journey in which you begin to become honest with yourself. From an Islamic point of view, we know ourselves from each other. We know ourselves from each other. The mu'min is a mirror to the mu'min. We need each other to know who we are. The more we're disconnected from each other, the more we can live in fantasy worlds and places of denial. One sheikh in Morocco said this is one of the secret gifts in Islam, that the men are required to pray together. The women are free to pray alone. And part of it's to aid them in their menstrual cycles, etc., etc. But he said another hidden benefit of it is that the women, they don't need reflection with each other as much as you men do. You men move into denial for so much, too easily. We all say, I'm fine, I'm happy, what's wrong with me? It's all somebody else, or it's her, or them. But remember that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was someone who, when he came, and we cannot be as he was completely, but we can use him as a model. He came, and one person, he changed the entire planet in his lifetime, or in less than a lifetime, just a short time. We don't believe we can do anything at some level. We've been beaten down. We are in chains. We can't do anything. It's the media. Oh, it's this. It's the school. Yeah, okay. All those things, but what do we do? How do we transform ourselves and the world? One sheikh said to me, he said, yeah, when you're young, you want to save the world. He said, well, of course. That's the only logical thing to want to do as a human being. It's yourself that you're saving. And in the end, the only one we can save is ourselves. That's the only one we can save, is ourselves. My teacher in Pakistan said, okay, you're going to do medicine. Don't think you're going to help people and save them. No, you are the one that's going to be healed by them, inshallah. They are your teachers, each one that comes to you. And he didn't mean it romantically. He meant it practically speaking. You are the one that needs healing, and your service to them is part of your healing. And that which they bring to you, if you have any humility, will enlighten you to knowledge of yourself. And they will reflect to you the truth. So we men don't listen. We don't know how to listen. We try to fix everything. I tell men, okay, you have problems at home with your wife, listen to her. Parents, you have trouble with your children, listen to them. Just listen to them. Don't try to do anything and don't try to fix it. Don't try to come in with explanations and ideas and concepts that explain what they're expressing. Just listen and feel what's being said. Most of us are not able to feel what's being said. And I promise you, if you get to a place, like I say, feeling is no less of a spectrum of awesome beauty than the creation is, with all of its majesty and all of its beauty. It's no less than that. But you have to stop for a moment and be with it. And like I say, as silly as it looks, come back to your senses and begin to feel. So I'd tell men, when something happens, be with it, just sit with it. Notice what happens in your body. Do you feel anything? Most men don't feel anything. I work with couples and the couples get into discussions and something happens and I say, well, okay, what do you feel that's happening here? You know, I say it to the man, to the male, I say, so what do you feel about what she just said? And he said, well, I feel like I need to do something. I'm like, yeah, I feel like I've got to change. And he thinks he's being a good, responsible person by saying that. And he is from an intellectual point of view, but in other words, I said, no, what are you feeling? Feeling, you know feeling, you know what that is? No, doesn't have a clue. I feel like I want to make her happy. I feel like I want to change and make something better. I feel like I want to fix it. I feel, or something more defensive. I feel like anything I do, it's not right, etc., etc. So we've shut down this whole subtle spectrum of feelings, and when we bring that back, we come back to life. But it's not an easy task, but it's a task that takes us inevitably to brilliance, because we think with our whole body and our whole being, and we see and we understand with our whole being, not otherwise. I was telling people I use Busta Rhymes. How many of you know Busta Rhymes? Good. Actually, people do know him. You know? Only reason I use it as an example is that I use a lot of performers as examples. Now, whatever may go on with him as a personality, whatever he's gone on through his life, when he performs, anybody seen him perform in live ever? Videos? Now, there's a man, right? Is that not an example of someone that when he does something, his whole being takes part, right? I mean, he's there, man, totally. But so energetically and vividly there, I watched him and I was so fascinated. I thought, wow, what's up with this guy? And so I begin to reflect on it because of my fascination, and I begin to realize that what it is, it's a moment of being totally present with what he's feeling and expressing it with his whole body, from the tip of his toes to his his metal-covered teeth or whatever it is, and his voice, that voice he has, totally, fully expressing. And yeah, there may be all kinds, he may go out and shoot somebody, astaghfirullah. But I'm just saying, it's an example of that. So this is what being alive is about, being totally present and being alive. And using, coming back to our senses, being totally present, and that enables us to think, to see, to understand, to help, to assist, to be alive, and to be as the Prophet ﷺ was, which is a total human being, with all of our parts taking part. So that's, in essence, what the principles of hikmah are, okay? So I think that's it, right? Alhamdulillah. Thank you all for being so patient and listening. I hope it wasn't, please forgive me if I've said anything that offended anyone. Forgive me if I bored you. Forgive me if I make presumptions of any kind. And please, inshallah, I hope that, it's of some use to you, inshallah. So, Ya Allah, Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammadin abdika wa rasulika nabiyil ummi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam tasliman. Adada khalqika warida nafsika wa zanata arshika wa madadi kalimatik. Ya Allah, I ask for blessings on this gathering. I ask Allah that you give us strength and courage to heal ourselves. I ask Allah that you give us guidance and show us how we find the means by which we heal ourselves and the people around us. Allah, give us the strength and the courage and the knowledge that we need to heal the world and the things that we see around us that need attention so dearly, and to help the people that are suffering and that are in pain, and that you give us knowledge and the means to connect with each other in a real way that's been lost amongst us, and bring us back together as brothers and sisters in a real way, and show us the wisdom we need to do that in all instances and in many places, inshallah. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-azim. Alhamdulillah.